My name is Emma Chen, and in the world of art collection, what looks like junk to the untrained eye can be worth millions to those who know what they're seeing. When my grandfather left me his seemingly modest art collection, my in-laws' mockery proved that money can't buy the expertise to recognize true value. Just look at this mess. Diana Wellington huffed, her designer heels clicking across the wooden floors of my grandfather's Victorian home. Decades of hoarding old paintings. What a waste of space. My husband Mark shifted uncomfortably beside me. The Wellington family owned one of San Francisco's most prestigious modern art galleries, where success was measured in celebrity clients and seven-figure sales. My grandfather's carefully curated collection of seemingly obscure Asian art didn't fit their definition of valuable. The storage fees alone must be killing you. Diana continued, wrinkling her nose at a delicate ink painting. You should have an estate sale. Clear it all out. I didn't bother explaining that my grandfather, James Chen, had spent 50 years building this collection with an expert's eye. He taught me everything. The subtle signs of authenticity, the hidden signatures, the historical significance of each piece. But more importantly, he taught me when to keep quiet about what you know. The discovery started during the initial inventory. In my grandfather's study, I found his meticulous documentation, provenance records, authentication papers, correspondence with museums and experts spanning decades. One name kept appearing: Dr. Sarah Zhang, curator of Asian art at the Metropolitan Museum. Your grandfather had an extraordinary eye, she told me when I called. He found pieces others overlooked, recognized significance others missed. Have you looked at the Song Dynasty scroll in his study? I had. It looked simple, a landscape in subtle ink strokes. My in-laws had dismissed it as amateur calligraphy. That scroll, Dr. Zhang said quietly, hasn't been seen in public since 1949. Museums worldwide thought it was lost during the Cultural Revolution. Your grandfather authenticated it 30 years ago but kept it private. Do you understand what this means? I did. That one scroll could be worth more than the Wellington Gallery's entire inventory. But that was just the beginning. I hired Catherine Morrison, a discreet art appraiser from Sotheby's, to evaluate the full collection. Her eyes widened as she moved from piece to piece. This collection, she whispered after 3 days of examination, is museum quality. The Tang Dynasty ceramics alone. How did he acquire all these? My grandfather's journals told the story. He'd spent his career as a history professor, traveling throughout Asia. While others chased famous names and obvious masterpieces, he looked deeper. He understood historical context, recognized authentic craftsmanship, and most importantly, knew how to verify what he found. Keep this quiet, Catherine advised, handing me her preliminary report. Once word gets out about this collection, everything changes. The numbers in her report made me catch my breath. Even the most conservative estimates were staggering. Meanwhile, Diana's campaign to help me deal with my problem inheritance intensified. I know it's hard to let go, she said during another family dinner at their Pacific Heights mansion. But these old paintings are just collecting dust. Our gallery could help you auction off the decent pieces. Mark's father, Richard Wellington, nodded sagely. It's the sensible thing to do. These elderly collectors, they lose perspective, end up filling their homes with worthless copies and forgeries. I sipped my wine, thinking of the authentication certificates hidden in my grandfather's study. You're probably right, I said mildly. That weekend, directors from major museums began discreetly visiting the house. Each one confirmed Catherine's assessment. The collection was extraordinary, museum-worthy pieces that had been quietly preserved while the art world thought them lost. Your grandfather was brilliant, the British Museum's expert told me. He didn't just collect art, he saved pieces of history that might have otherwise disappeared forever. Mark found me in the study that evening, surrounded by my grandfather's documentation. Why didn't you tell them, he asked softly, about the true value? I looked at the amateur landscape scroll, thinking of its remarkable journey through history. My grandfather used to say that true value isn't in the price tag, it's in understanding what you're looking at, I replied. Your family sees old paintings. I see centuries of history, art that survived wars and revolutions, pieces that museums have been searching for decades. And my mother sees a chance to prove she knows better than everyone else. Mark added with a hint of sadness. I nodded, checking my phone. Another message from Catherine at Sotheby's. Everything was in place for next week's announcement. Your mother's going to learn something interesting about art valuation, I said, and about making assumptions about other people's collections. Mark studied my face. In our 5 years of marriage, he'd never seen me quite like this. What exactly did my wife inherit? He asked slowly. I thought about the papers from Sotheby's, the museum authentication certificates, the carefully documented provenance of each piece. History, I said simply. And next week, everyone's going to understand exactly what that's worth. Diana's words echoed in my mind. Not even worth the storage fees. If she only knew what was really stored in these quiet rooms and what was about to happen when the art world found out. The revelation began at Sotheby's New York headquarters, where the art world's elite gathered for what they thought was a routine Asian art preview. Diana and Richard Wellington had front row seats, there to support me in selling off my grandfather's modest collection. At least Sotheby's agreed to look at it, Diana whispered loudly to her friends. Though they're probably being polite. Her voice trailed off as Catherine Morrison took the podium. Behind her, screens lit up with images that made the audience gasp. Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine began, we are privileged today to announce the discovery of what may be the most significant private collection of Asian art to emerge in the past 50 years, the James Chen collection. The first piece displayed was the amateur landscape scroll, the one Diana had suggested selling at a yard sale. This Song Dynasty masterpiece, Catherine continued, was believed lost during the Cultural Revolution. Its discovery alone rewrites our understanding of 12th century Chinese art. Current market value estimate, $8 million. Diana's champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. But that was just the beginning. Over the next hour, Catherine unveiled the true scope of my grandfather's collection. The Tang Dynasty ceramics, each worth millions. The rare Japanese screens that museums had been searching for decades. The collection of Ming Dynasty paintings that filled crucial gaps in art historical records. The total collection, Catherine announced, has been conservatively valued at $120 million. But its historical significance is truly priceless. The room erupted in chaos. Museum directors were already approaching with acquisition offers. Collectors were trying to schedule private viewings. Diana sat frozen, her face a mask of shock and dawning comprehension. Then came the announcement that changed everything. Miss Chen has decided, Catherine continued, to establish the James Chen Institute for Asian Art Preservation. Rather than selling the collection, she will be partnering with major museums to create a revolutionary new model of private-public art conservation. I took the podium, feeling my grandfather's presence in every word. This collection represents more than monetary value, I said. It represents 50 years of preserving art that others overlooked, pieces of history that might have been lost forever. The Institute will continue that mission. The Metropolitan Museum's director was the first to pledge support. Others quickly followed. By evening, the art world was buzzing with news of not just the collection's value, but its historical importance. Diana cornered me at the reception. You knew, she accused. All this time, while we were telling you to have a yard sale. I knew what my grandfather taught me, I replied calmly. That true expertise isn't about price tags or prestigious galleries. It's about understanding the story behind each piece, recognizing value that others miss. Mark found me later, his eyes shining with pride and something else. Understanding. This is why you were so quiet, he said. Why you let Mom go on about storage fees and yard sales. I nodded. Sometimes the best way to honor knowledge is to wait for the right moment to share it. The transformation of both families was remarkable. The Wellingtons' approach to art shifted dramatically. Their gallery began featuring carefully researched pieces alongside their contemporary collections. Diana even enrolled in Asian art history courses. The James Chen Institute became a landmark institution in the art world. We partnered with universities and museums, creating programs to train new generations of art historians and conservators. My grandfather's meticulous documentation became a model for art authentication and preservation. Today, I'm writing this from my grandfather's study, now the Institute's main research center. The amateur landscape scroll hangs in a specially designed display case, its subtle beauty finally recognized by the world. Diana visits often, her designer heels now quiet on the wooden floors. She studies each piece with new eyes, asking questions about history and provenance. Last week, he helped fund a scholarship for students studying Asian art conservation. I was so wrong, she admitted recently, watching students examine a Tang Dynasty piece. I thought I knew everything about art because I knew about money. Your grandfather knew about art because he understood its soul. The collection that she once dismissed as worthless has become a pillar of art historical research. Scholars come from around the world to study pieces that my grandfather quietly preserved while others overlooked them. Mark runs the Institute's educational programs now, sharing the knowledge his father-in-law left behind. Sometimes the most valuable things, he tells students, are the ones that don't shout their worth to the world. In my office, I keep two things: my grandfather's first acquisition journal and Diana's handwritten note suggesting a yard sale. They remind me that value isn't always obvious to those who only look at surfaces. Last month, we discovered another important piece in my grandfather's records, a previously unknown Yuan dynasty painting, perfectly preserved and documented. Diana was the first person I called. "Come see what we found," I said. She arrived within the hour, not to judge, but to learn. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving people wrong. It's about teaching them to see what was there all along. My grandfather understood that. He spent 50 years quietly preserving art that the world had forgotten, knowing that someday someone would understand its true value. As I watch new students examine each piece with wonder, learning the subtle signs that distinguish true masterpieces from mere expensive paintings, I think about different kinds of inheritance. Money, property, art, these are simple things. But the real inheritance my grandfather left was something far more valuable. The knowledge to see beauty others miss, the patience to preserve what seems forgotten, and the wisdom to know that true value often hides in plain sight. The art world now speaks of the James Chen collection as a testament to one man's vision and his granddaughter's dedication to sharing it with the world. But for me, it's simpler than that. It's about understanding that sometimes the most precious things are the ones that others dismiss as worthless. And sometimes the quietest collectors leave the loudest legacies, just like my grandfather always knew they would.